How's it going, everybody? It's Warren and welcome back to the channel. Today we have some really exciting news about a couple of different things, but all relating to Spider-Man. Spider-Man has possibly been the biggest, most talked about Marvel topic since the Sony Spider-Man deal with Disney, and Marvel kind of went south, but then of course they struck a new deal for Spider-Man to remain in the MCU. But during this time where nobody really knew what was going to happen, whether Spider-Man was going to go back just to Sony or if he was going to remain in the MCU, fans made it very clear that they do want Spider-Man's character in the MCU with the rest of the characters. And now it seems like, according to some reports and according to some websites that are close to Marvel Studios and are starting to speculate, that we could probably get more than one Spider-Man in the MCU with a multiverse. That's right, I'm talking about a live-action Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with multiple versions of Peter Parker. Versions that could include Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man from the Sam Raimi series and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man as well. And to top it all off, we actually have reports that say Marvel Studios is eyeing to do a Spider-Gwen movie as well, a live-action Spider-Gwen movie. Now, everybody has loved Spider-Gwen for a very long time. She's a really popular and lovable character. So this report that says that Marvel would like to do a Spider-Gwen movie comes at little to no surprise. It actually makes perfect sense. But a Spider-Man multiverse where we could see Tom Holland's Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man all in the same room in the same time is something that we didn't really know we wanted until we saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where multiple versions of Spider-Man all come together. But now, of course, everybody is dying to see Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield as their own Spider-Man characters in one film, and it looks like it could happen. I'll break down these reports thoroughly about a live-action Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and of course Tom Holland, and then of course the possibility of a Spider-Gwen movie. If you're new, be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date on everything relating to the MCU. I'm also giving away an Xbox One and a PS4, and all you have to do is subscribe with notifications turned on, like the video, and leave a comment below to enter. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was a very popular and a very successful movie. It earned over $375 million at the box office, and the budget was only $90 million. But the most important thing about the movie is that the fans loved it. And of course, after it came out, and then we had Spider-Man Far From Home coming out, where we saw a trailer where Mysterio mentioned the multiverse. Many people thought that in Spider-Man Far From Home, we could see some type of live-action version of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, with multiple versions of Spider-Man coming in the main universe from different universes. However, of course, this turned out to be a lie. Mysterio was lying about the multiverse. He was actually from the same universe. And that was kind of a bummer, but now we do have an actual multiverse. And we're starting to connect the dots on how a live-action Spider-Verse could be set up right now. According to Mikey Sutton, who has been known to leak accurate information about Spider-Man, he says that the relationship between Sony and Marvel is now stronger than ever, and in fact, they've worked out a new deal. This deal involved the use and reference of Spider-Man characters in the Sonyverse. And according to Mikey, a live-action Spider-Verse movie has Marvel Studios deeply interested, one that could have Tom Holland meeting his predecessors. And of course, we all know who his predecessors are, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. So just imagine a movie where you see Tom Holland's Spider-Man fighting alongside Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. That's what could happen in the future. However, there are some people that suggest that Marvel is already setting this up. According to comicbook.com, it's possible that Marvel Studios has already begun setting up a live-action Spider-Verse, and they've done it recently in Morbius. Now, there are two possible things that could be happening in Morbius with them showing Spider-Man on the wall. One is that there simply is no connection to the MCU whatsoever. Sony is simply using their rights to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man by putting him on the wall and trying to build hype. And then of course, Vulture may not be the Vulture from the MCU. Instead, it could just be some character that Michael Keaton is playing. However, Mikey Sutton says that his sources say this is not true. There actually is something in development here, and that actually is Vulture from the MCU. So according to comicbook.com, this is how Marvel Studios and Sony could be setting up a live-action Spider-Verse with Morbius. The picture on the wall in the Morbius trailer says murderer. This is obviously picking off of the Spider-Man Far From Home post-credit scene where Mysterio says that Peter Parker killed him. However, the Spider-Man suit that is in the picture is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and he also appeared in Spider-Man PS4. So clearly they are connecting Spider-Man to the events in Spider-Man Far From Home which take place in the MCU, but why didn't they use Tom Holland's Spider-Man costume? Well, this is what comicbook.com says could be happening. This is an alternate universe tied to the MCU but independent of the events of the MCU, meaning a true Marvel Cinematic Universe exists. So, the universe that Morbius exists in, the Spider-Man in that universe, is actually Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. And this is a world that Tom Holland's Spider-Man could travel to, creating a true Spider-Verse. Now, this actually makes a lot of sense if we look at some of the facts here. One is that it doesn't really make any sense that they put Sam Raimi's version of Spider-Man in the picture, but they also put Murderer over it. The fact that it says Murderer clearly means that it's coming from the post-credit scene from Spider-Man Far From Home. So why put the Sam Raimi suit? Well, because the Spider-Man in that universe that was accused of being a murderer is actually Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and that's why he has the suit, because it's actually him. So basically, in the Morbius universe, Tobey Maguire is Spider-Man. And of course we know where the MCU is heading. They are setting up the multiverse. So since the multiverse is real in the MCU, it would make total and absolute sense that Peter Parker, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, could travel to a different multiverse to escape the world. And in this universe where Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man exists, anything that Peter Parker does, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, won't affect the MCU at all, because it exists in another universe. But it does affect Tom Holland's Peter Parker. This is a sort of way to kind of give everybody what they want. The fans want a live-action Spider-Verse, and Sony and Marvel both want a live-action Spider-Verse as well. And this way they get to do one that technically does exist in the MCU. However, it's set in an alternate reality, so it doesn't affect the main MCU timeline. This is an everybody wins situation. Marvel wins, Sony wins, and the fans win. And not to mention, this would make billions at the box office. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield returning to be with Tom Holland, it'll make $1 billion for sure. And then they could add in one more character, a live-action Spider-Gwen. As I mentioned in the beginning, Spider-Man fans have been in love with Spider-Gwen for a very long time. And of course, she was in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and played a very important character. Well, according to another report from Mikey Sutton, Disney has a mad crush on Gwen Stacy. She has a very big following, and according to Mikey Sutton, Marvel wants to put her up front and center in her own film after Spider-Man 3. Now, of course, Gwen Stacy has been in previous Spider-Man films. She's been in Spider-Man 3, where she was played by Bryce Dallas Howard, and of course, she was in The Amazing Spider-Man, where she was played by Emma Stone. But according to this report, Marvel isn't just planning on introducing Gwen Stacy, they want Spider-Gwen. And they want it to fully take place inside of the MCU, with her teaming up with some of the Young Avengers, which we know are coming. So, if Marvel Studios, and Sony of course, is planning on introducing a Spider-Gwen into the MCU and have her interact with some of the Young Avengers, and Marvel Studios and Sony is planning on introducing a live-action Spider-Verse, Spider-Gwen will most likely make an appearance in the live-action Spider-Verse as well, just as she did into the animated series Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And this all lines up extremely well to actually happen in the not-too-distant future. Clearly, Sony and Marvel are planning something with Spider-Man and a multiverse, as we've seen again Sam Raimi's Spider-Man in the Morbius trailer. And this could very well be the big team-up film that Marvel Studios and Sony made a deal with for Spider-Man to appear in the MCU. With the new Sony-Disney deal, we know that they worked out a film for a single solo Spider-Man film and then a crossover film. Now, it's been widely speculated that this could be Captain Marvel 2, which does kind of make sense if you consider the fact that Maria Hill and Nick Fury were actually Talos and his wife the whole entire time during Spider-Man Far From Home. However, if you have one movie in the new deal that you worked out, you probably aren't going to waste it on Captain Marvel 2. You'll probably want it to be a much bigger film. Well, what if this film, this crossover event, has something to do with Doctor Strange sending Peter Parker into a different universe? After all, Doctor Strange 2 is called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Perhaps some of the multiverses are actually colliding. This could be how we see more than one version of Spider-Man in a single film. Tom Holland's Spider-Man goes into the Morbius universe, and there he encounters Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and there another universe collides where we see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, and then Spider-Gwen as well. And all of the alternate universes starting to collide could be the start of Battleworld: Avengers Secret Wars. This is widely believed and heavily speculated to be the next Avengers Endgame type of event. Now, of course, this will take place way down the road, probably not until another 10 years, but it has to be built up just like Avengers Endgame was built up. And one of the premises for one version of the Battleworld event is that the multiverses actually collide into each other. Well, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and a live-action Spider-Verse could all be the beginning of this. And again, Marvel Studios and Sony knows that everybody wants to see a film with Tom Holland Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, so they'd be absolutely crazy not to try to make it happen. But let me know what you think about this. Would you like to see a live-action Spider-Verse with Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and of course Tom Holland, and then Spider-Gwen as well? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and of course subscribe with notifications turned on so you can stay up to date on everything relating to the MCU. Xbox One and PS4 giveaways are in the description down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.